So here's the question in this screenshot. All right, so we can see a couple of red arrows here identifying where the bloodhound signal is wanted. So the requirements are, right, so we can see we have a renko bar, and we're using an EMA 32, and so the EMA needs to have, a certain steepness to it. Tony says of 15 degrees, although charts do not have degrees. You cannot measure degrees in a chart, right? Because charts are always, the y-axis is always adjusting. So there's no way to measure degrees on a chart since the y-axis is always varying. So the only thing you can measure is a tick angle, a slope. You can measure slopes on a chart using a tick-based slope. So in any case, so that won't be a problem. But just so everybody's technically aware, you cannot measure degrees on a chart. So you have to have a fixed y-axis and a fixed x-axis in order to measure degrees properly. But in any case, the gist is we're looking for a steep, a fairly, and a good angle on the EMA. And then we can see here on the, all the arrows are pointing at these reversal bars. So when we get these long wicks penetrating the EMA, that's when on reversal bars, that's when we want these signals here. All right. Okay, so there we go. Got the chart set up, and let's see what we're looking for here. So it looks like we should get a signal there and a signal there, possibly a signal there. All right, and it looks like, we should have a long signal there. All right, anyways, I think we have enough marked areas here to work with. Okay, we'll get BloodHound open and switch over to the logic tab, and I'm going to make a new logic template here. Let's see what to call this. Something like that. All right, so we're looking for the reversal bar wick to hit the EMA. Let's see. Okay, so I think the easiest solver to make first is going to be the solver that's looking at the EMA to make sure it's got a certain amount of slope on it. Right. Well, that'll be the easiest one to set up first. So let's go down here and grab a slope solver. Connect that up. And next, so let's see, this is going to be the EMA 32 slope. Let me open this up a little bit more. There we go. All right, so let's switch our input to the EMA 32. All right, there's the EMA. And let's switch over to a 32. And all right, so now here's the subjective part, as always, right? When you're looking for some kind of slope of an indicator, that's very subjective here. So when your indicator is on the price panel, you're typically going to want to use ticks as your measurement unit. Now, if you're dealing with something like the stochastics or the MACD, which is on its own sub-panel, then you want to use points, right? So indicators that run on their own sub-panel, you want to use points. So, but for moving averages on the price panel, you want to use ticks. So, so let's start off. I usually start off with a half a tick, something like that. And then you basically just got to take a look and, take your best judgment and figure out, well, like this, for example, here. Let's take a look right here. Does the EMA right here have enough slope to it that you would want to include it, as having enough slope or not? you know, if the answer is yes, you'd like to include that, well, then you just, you know, you just go back to your solver and reduce the tick amount, you know, say something like 0.4, something like that, right? So, but I'm just going to go with 0.5 and just kind of keep this simple here. So there. We're going to set the maximum and minimum amount, both of them to 0.5, like so. And let's see. Yeah, I guess 0.5 will, that'll work for a good demonstration here, because if we take a look at, you know, our marked possible, you know, our marked signal points, so we can see that the slope solver is saying that our EMA has enough slope here for this signal, but not enough here. So our EMA didn't slope down enough for this to generate a signal, or this one to generate a signal. But we will get a signal here. Yeah, right. We can see there's an output from the slope solver, right on this bar here, so that will generate a signal. Right. So I'll leave it at 0.5, simply just because it's blocking some of these, but allowing some of them through, which is kind of the whole point of, right, looking at the slope of a moving average. So, all right, so there we go. So we have that done. So now we need to detect, right, when the EMA is touching the wick part. So right, so that screenshot mentioned the wick part. So, so if it's touching the body, I think Tony wants to exclude that. If the EMA is touching the body, then that doesn't count as a signal. So, like for example, here, yeah, here we go. This would be a good example. So we can see our moving average is in the body of this candle and not touching the wick. So this would be excluded. Yeah, this would not count. So, but over here, possibly, right? So the EMA is touching the wick, so that possibly might count. So, okay, so let's build the solvers here, detecting the wick and the EMA. So this is going to take a couple of comparison solvers, right? So how do we define the wick of a candle, right? Well, if it's a down renko bar, down candle, right? The wick is going to be the high price to the open price. And if it's an up candle, then it's going to be the low price to the open price. All right? So the EMA needs to be below the high but above the open for a down candle. Right? And then if it's an up candle or a long signal, then the EMA needs to be above the low but below the open. Right? So we're going to need to set up a couple of comparison solvers to do that checking for us. So let's grab a comparison solver. And let's connect this up. So let's see here. So for an up candle, we're going to look at the low price of the bar, and for a down candle, we're going to look at the high price of the candle, and then compare that to the EMA. Or let's see, let me go. I'm going to name this slightly different here. So this is going to be looking at the lower the high of the wick, right? And then comparing it to the EMA. All right, so let's see. Input A, we're going to set this to price. There. All right, so now let's look. Okay, so for a long signal, look at our chart again. So for a long signal, right, an up bar, we're looking at the low price, right, the low of the wick. So set this to the low price. And then for a short signal, well, that's going to be opposite. We're looking at the high price of the bar. So, okay, so there's that. And let's see, next, let's set input B is going to be that EMA 32 period. And there's the EMA. Set it to the 32 period. Call it good. Okay. So now, checking the outputs here. Actually, we can just look at the chart here, and we can see that there's no output here. But over here, right, on these bars, let's stretch this out a little bit. Right, when the low, right, so we can see on these bars, the low is above the EMA, we're getting a long output. So we can tell already that we need to reverse the outputs here. All right, so let's reverse these outputs like so. There. All right. So there we go. So whenever the low of the bar is below our EMA, we're getting a long output, right? So we can see there's 3 long outputs down here, right? And, for now, we can ignore the short outputs, right? The short outputs will get filtered out, that's just from this one solver here. So it'll get filtered out once we put the whole system together. So, yeah. And let's see here. On these down bars, we can see that whenever the high of all these bars are above, right, they're all above the EMA. And so we're getting a short output here, right, until, right, the high down here, the high of the bars are below the EMA, and so there's no short output. All right, so there we go. So we know that's all correct. Okay, so that's one part of the wick, right? That's just the low or the high of the wick. Now we need to check the open of the wick to make this a complete filter, right? A complete check. So let's grab another comparison solver. Connect that up. Now this time we're going to check the open price to the EMA, like so. All right, so again, input A, we'll set that to price, and we're going to set both the long and the short to the open price. And then input B, we'll switch that over to the EMA. All right, change the period, and we'll call it good. All right, so if the open is above the EMA, right, we want a long output, and we're getting that. And then if the open is below the EMA, we want a short output, and we have that. All right, so in other words, we didn't need to reverse the outputs this time. So let's grab our first AND node, right? And these two conditions, have to happen together. So if we take a look at this now it's going to make a lot more sense, right? So there we go. There, let's see here. Yeah, so we don't have a bar direction here. So you notice we have some down bars. Right. So again, this isn't the complete system. This is just a little filter, but technically, everything's correct here. So as far as this up bar, right, is concerned, right, we have the wick, we have the EMA inside the wick. Great. But again, if we look at these down bars, if we look at them technically, right, the low of the bar is below the EMA, and the open of the bar is above the EMA. So technically, right, the low and the open, even though they're the body of the bar, technically what we looked at is, we should have a long output here. So, but if we wanted to clean this up so that this filter, is working perfectly with, prior to the whole system being built, then what we could do is add a bar direction solver, right? Because keep in mind, so, what's the problem with these three long signals here? Well, these are down bars, right? And then we have an up bar. So really, right, we're only wanting the long signal on the up bar. All right, so we want to filter out these down bars. So we just take a bar direction solver and connect that in there, and that cleans things up. All right. And again, this is just, we're only looking at the filter part here, right? Or I should say, we're only looking at the Wick condition, right? So we haven't connected in the slope of the EMA part yet. So, and actually, yeah, we've got the Wick component built, done. So last step, connect in the slope of the EMA, and we're done. So let's shrink things up here and take a look. Oh, and that's right. That's why we check things. That's why we always check things. So the directions specifically mention reversal bars. So this is not a reversal bar. So how do we filter out this guy? Well, if finding reversal bars on renkos is really easy. We can take a inflection solver. So we can grab this inflection solver and let's connect it in here so we can see what we're doing. And simply set the input type to price. Right, and so if we look at the closing price inflecting, then right there we go. We can see all of the reversal bars are being identified just using a simple inflection solver. Right, it's marking all these reversal bars. So there we go. Let's connect this in again, and here, I'll put this right down here. And so as soon as I connect this in, there we go. It got rid of this signal here during the trend. So there we go. So we could also, I guess instead of calling this a close inflection, we could rename this solver to call it the reversal bars, something like that. There. Okay, let's take a look through a little bit more, see if there's any other false signals, anything we need to clean up. Let's see here. Well, I guess the slope right here in the EMA didn't quite cut it, so no signal there. And right here, the EMA is basically kind of cutting through the bodies of these bars, so that looks pretty good. Yeah, so again, our EMA was pretty flat just prior to the reversal bar, so didn't quite make the slope requirement. Let's see, yeah, the EMA is not hitting the wick, so there we go again. But yeah, it looks like that the slope requirement of half a tick is pretty stringent, so it's eliminating a lot of signals here. So, but here's another one. So I guess having a higher slope requirement kind of keeps these pullback bars to a minimum. Otherwise, that EMA is going to flatten out too much. So, all right, there's a few more signals. And good. All right. So again, so the one thing to remember that's subjective and adjustable, in this system here, is this slope solver up on top and adjusting the slope in the parameters here. So the maximum slope and minimum slope, adjusting those two numbers together, something like that. So if you wanted to make it a little easier, we could go down to like 0.45. Put 0.45 in there, and that might allow some additional signals to get through. Let's see here. Yeah, like this one, I don't think this was there before with a slope of 0.5, so I think we gained an extra one there. So, yeah. All right. Okay.